like we got ourselves a bad man right here.
Hey guys, Society Reviews here, my review of the film Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1. It's been a long and difficult last few years for Kevin Costner, both in his personal and professional career. The man who was the face of the hit television show Yellowstone for Paramount over the last couple of years had a falling out with the creative brain trust of the show, which devolved to the point where the actor did not show up for the final season, despite being the patriarch of the show. On top of that, details of a long drawn-out divorce did not help matters, as Costner's public persona took a hit. However, Costner has not been sitting around doing nothing for that period. Costner is back as the writer, producer, director, and star of a major Western epic project that has been split up into 4 cinematic chapters, with the first one pushing over 3 hours of runtime. In the course of such a massive project, Costner has brought in a multitude of actors and actresses to help him tell the story of the Western United States during the time of the Civil War. The problem with that plan, however, is that Kevin Costner, who is no stranger to the Western genre, has bitten off far more than he can chew with the first part of his project entitled Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is set in the early days of the beginning of the American War. However, the focus of the movie takes place in the unsettled west coast of the United States, where American settlers are experiencing a violent conflict with Native Americans, specifically the Apache tribe. After a group of settlers attempt to claim what they believe is uncharted territory, they are attacked in the middle of the night by a group of violent Apaches who kill their women, children, and steal their weapons as a sign that they are not welcome in the region. In the aftermath of such an event, the US government takes the remaining settlers to a camp that they can guarantee their safety. Meanwhile, in Montana, a young woman named Lucy shoots a man and then flees with her young son. However, the man named James Sykes survives the attack and sends his men to go find her. They cross paths with Costner's character of Hayes and the town's prostitute of Marigold, and they flee the onslaught of the men who are looking to retain the kid. This old school style western begins to set up pieces to a much bigger story. However, that story may be too big for the scope of this movie. While one may be hesitant to be too harsh on Kevin Costner's first outing with Horizon Saga Chapter 1, as Part 2 is only roughly 6 weeks away, it doesn't take away from the fact that Part 1 is a head-scratching adventure in more ways than one. After a very impressive and very heart-wrenching opening act that requires us to see the brutality of a native and settler conflict during that time period, the one thing that hurts this movie going forward is trying to string along an endless supply of characters and plot points that simply do not mesh well together at all. Audiences should know that this is a movie that stretches its runtime over 3 hours, and the film introduces a multitude of characters and storylines that can be declared overwhelming for the audience. It's impossible to explain the full complexity of the story in such a short period of time. The only way to explain is basically this. A woman shoots her husband, steals their kid, who is now under the care of the town's prostitute and a gunslinger. While this is happening, several groups of people attempt to pick the pieces back of their lives in various locations around the country, and somewhere along the way, Owen Wilson appears for about 2 minutes of a 3-hour runtime. Costner's film is simply unfocused, as it bounces around between multiple states and multiple stories that are crafted in a way that makes the audience feel that there's no correlation between any of the storylines. The film is like watching a 3-hour soap opera that jumps around from point A to point B to point C to point D. The only real justification that this movie has is that Part 2 is slated to come out in August. However, that puts the audience in an awkward position of waiting 6 weeks to find out if the first 3 hours of this film was even worth the time invested. For most mainstream audiences, Horizon Chapter 1 is going to be a very tough sell. Many moviegoers are going to be questioning what they watch for 3 hours rather than building up genuine excitement for the next film. The worst case scenario is that Chapter 1 was such a misfire that even fewer people are going to be motivated to see Chapter 2 when it comes out in a few weeks. Horizon and American Saga is certainly a passion project for Kevin Costner, who's been trying to sell this idea to studios for 35 years. However, the first part of this chapter proves that he probably should have listened to the studio executives who said no before investing $40 million of his own money to come to that same conclusion. I give this film a 2 out of 5.
You use that much this year?
Haven't had much need of it yet.